Hello everyone, today we are going to learn how to make these adorable little clay fruit friends. Previously I made these little guys. I made a watermelon and an orange, and I wanted to make more of some other fruits to complete the collection. So here is that video. We're going to have a full tutorial of how to make all of these adorable fruits. I've already made the orange and a watermelon, so I'm going to show you how to make an apple, a blueberry, a pineapple, and a strawberry. By the way, we're going to be using air dry clay for this so that they're super easy and simple to make, and I'm going to be using paper clay. I highly recommend it than Crayola air dry clay. It is so much lighter and it's very durable too. So for the first little clay friend, we're going to start with an apple. Now I'm not going to be remaking the orange and the watermelon in this tutorial, but a lot of the same techniques will apply to making those if you also want to complete the entire collection. So I'm just going to make a small round ball. Some of the clay that I was using was a bit old, so it's a little bit dry, but if you're using fresh clay, you won't have this much of a problem that I did in the beginning, where I just needed to keep sealing those cracks. And we're just gonna make a nice little round ball. You can use your hands to form the ball. That's the easiest way to do it. And I'm also gonna be using some tools to help me out. And I wanted to keep this around the same size as the previous ones that I made. And I'm using this tool to create a crack at the top of this apple, because apples have that stem and it's a very round indent in the top of those apples. And just using my fingers to smooth that out a bit. Once you have that shape, I'm gonna get some extra clay to make the stem and the leaf. If you're making an orange, use this exact same technique for making the orange. Just don't do that indent at the top. We're gonna make a small little snake and sort of a round diamond for the leaf. And I'm going to use a pottery technique to attach these little pieces called scoring, where with a tool I'm going to create some cross-hatching lines, and I'm adding a little bit of water so that it connects in there really well. And I'll also use the end of a tool where it's kind of like a sharp end to create a bit of a hole for the stem, because that's where that's going to go. There's a little bit of water in there, and just put it right in. The stem was a little bit too long, so I just pinched the top of that off. You can make it as long or as short as you want, but to keep it relatively simple, I'm going to do a little bit short, also so that it doesn't break off if it's too long, because it is air dry clay. And using that same technique, but without creating a hole, I'm going to score it and get a little bit of water, and then just place that leaf right in there and then blend that out as well. And a simple little detail you can do is just create a little line or two in that leaf to make it look like a leaf. It's really simple and cute. And I'm going to be using that same knife tool to carve out a little face in this apple, sort of a rectangular oval. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you have some kind of cookie cutter that's kind of the shape, you could also just kind of press that in there, but I don't have any, so I'm just going to use this tool. And you could make it a little bit deep so that it's kind of sticking out a bit, and you're done. So let's move on to the next fruit, which is going to be a blueberry. Form a smaller ball for this one. Blueberries are obviously a lot smaller than all of these fruits, so this one's just going to be a little guy. I'm making this about half the size of the apple, sort of just shorter and kind of smaller, and with an extra piece of clay. I'm going to form with my fingers a little star. For this, I want this to stick out a bit, sort of like a puffy star, because it's that little piece at the top of a blueberry. I believe it's kind of like a stem. Using that same scoring technique for the other stems, but a little bit bigger, I'm just going to place that in there and blend that out as well. And I also have this round tool, and I'm going to use it to create this sort of crater in the center of that stem piece, because on blueberries they have that little hole at the top there, so I wanted to achieve that using this round tool. And for the face, this ended up being a little bit slimmer than the other ones, but I think it kind of works because it is a smaller fruit. We're just going to use the same shape for all of the faces on these guys. The next fruit is going to be a little bit complex because it's going to be a pineapple, and I'm going to add a lot of texture and shape to this. And this pineapple is going to be taller than all of the other fruits. So for this, you're just going to form a ball and just sort of roll it out so it's a little bit like a cylinder. It's going to be a little bit taller, but still very round. I'm just trying to use my hands to like roll it up a bit so it's a little bit taller, and with extra clay I'm going to make a bunch of leaves for the pineapple leaves. These are going to be a little bit longer than the apple leaf or the orange leaf, but it's pretty much the same process. For making them, we're just going to extend them out a bit, and you can vary in the sizes of these. You know, they sort of smaller at the base of the pineapple and a bit longer and taller at the top, and we're just going to put those all together and do that same scoring technique to create a hole at the top of the pineapple and put that in there and blend that out. At first I only made 4 leaves and I didn't think that was enough, so I created some extra ones off camera, kind of using the same technique, but I just curved the bottom of it sort of inwards so that I can easily put it on there and blend that extra clay out. This part is optional, but you can blend out the creases of the leaves a bit. I did this to prevent any breakage if they were to somehow fall or anything. I thought if they were all kind of connected together, it would have a less chance of breaking, and add some lines in there for the leaves as well. Then pick the best side of this guy and make a face just like before, and we're going to get into that fun texture now. I'm going to sort of do an argyle pattern for the texture of the pineapple. And if you don't know what argyle pattern is, think of like argyle socks. It's just like a bunch of diamonds that are pretty much next to each other in a repeating pattern, and just do that all around. Finally, onto our last fruit sculpture, and one of my favorite fruits. We're going to do a strawberry. Now, this is going to be about the same height, but a little bit taller than the blueberry, but not as tall as the other ones. And I'm just going to form a nice ball and sort of shape the bottom edge of the strawberry to make it look like a strawberry shape where it's kind of like a teardrop. Since this is the end, it's not going to be like pointy, just sort of form with my hands like a cup around it to make that like slim bottom sort of. And for the stem and the leaves, I'm sort of applying the same technique that I did for the blueberry stem, where I made a star with some extra clay. For this, I'm just doing it on a flat piece of clay that I rolled out and just drawing a pretty messy star shape, but kind of leafy, and then cut that out, score, and add a little bit of water to the top of the strawberry and just place that on there. It's super easy. And once more, use that same technique for making a stem, where you score and add a little hole, a little bit of water, and make the stem a lot smaller than the previous stems. Strawberries are pretty small fruits and they have really thin, slim stems, so you can also curve it to add a little bit of interest and blend out the edge of the leaves a bit so that it stays on there, so it's not like messy edges. Then make the face, and for the final details for the strawberry, we're gonna use the end of a tool or even a pencil or a pen to create some indents. If you also have a round tool, you can also do the same thing, and just kind of going all around, not really paying attention to where they're going. There are so many little seeds on strawberries, so just kind of create those indents all around and you are finally done sculpting. We are back and ready to paint. This is always my favorite part of sculpting with air dry clay, is painting them and making them look awesome. I waited 2 days until these guys were completely dry. If you're using the exact clay as I am, you can see where it's still moist, and you'll know that it's completely dry when it's completely white and the entire thing is hard. If you kind of like press a nail into any parts, if there's no dents, then you know that it is dry and ready. If it kind of dents, it's a little bit wet, you can smooth it out. if you've made too big of a dent. And once they're completely dry, I highly recommend sanding them down. Sandpaper is really cheap, and you can use it for lots of other things. And I'm just going to sand any rough edges and just smooth these guys out for painting. And we're going to go pretty traditional for the colors of the fruits. I'm going yellow for this pineapple, but I'm also going to try to make it a little bit realistic with some other paint colors as well. So I'm just first going to cover this entire pineapple in yellow paint and make sure I get in all of those little cracks and crevices where I made all those details for the texture of the pineapple. And I changed the color of the leaves off camera later on, so once the yellow paint is dry, you can paint the leaves as well. And I'm kind of doing some wet brushing all around of a slightly more saturated yellow color with a little bit of orange to add bits of details. And with a little bit more of an orange color, I'm just going to do some little lines in the center of each of those little diamonds. Looking at pineapples, they all kind of have that little like spiky bit in the center of those diamonds, so I'm trying to do that here, and also getting in the cracks with that same color for extra details. And then with a light yellow color, I'm going to paint the face of the pineapple, and we're going to add the eyes and the mouth later on because we're going to move on to the apple. So I'm going to cover this whole thing in a red color. You can also do a green apple if you want, but I do want these to be in like a rainbow color, so I'm doing a red apple. But I'm going to add lots of different colors in here as well, because apples aren't just one color. There's lots of oranges or even like dark purples in some apples. There's also green if it's not super ripe yet. So with a sort of a dry brush, I'm sort of just like smearing around this like red orange color and a little bit of green in the center of the apple, and sort of kind of spreading that around. With some of the reference pictures that I was looking at, some of the apples had like bits of green or even yellow in the center at the top, and adding some more depth to this, some like darker red towards the bottom, and a little bit of like a light yellow, more orange like scratches around, and some yellow dots. And make sure you're painting the stem and leaf two different green colors. The leaves would be traditionally more of a darker green, where the stems would be a little bit lighter, but if the stem has been broken off for a long time, it would be more brown. But I'm thinking of this as like a freshly picked apple, so my stems will be more of a light green. Then with like a pale orange kind of color with a little bit of like pink and red in there, I'm gonna do the face for the apple, so we can move on to the next root, which is going to be a strawberry. Because while I was still using red paint, I created this like fuchsia pink color. I mixed a little bit of pink into the red to create this strawberry. I didn't want it to also be red, so I kind of made it more of a pink strawberry and just painted that all around. I also added a little bit of a darker fuchsia to, some areas where I thought it would make it look cool. I'm just trying to add a little bit of depth to all of these so they're not just one color. Then I painted the leaves and the stem. Later on, I decided to change the color of the stem because, like I said before, stems are a little bit lighter than the leaves. So I did make the stem of this a little bit of a lighter green, and you can also clean up any edges if you mess up with your red or pink paint that you'll be using. And with a lighter pink, I'm gonna use that on the face. And finally for the strawberry, little bits of yellow with a super tiny brush in all of those indents. And if you mess up, you can clean it up a little bit around the edges. If the yellow paint got where you didn't want it to be, you can clean it up with your pink or red paint. You can also add bits of lighter pink to the strawberry if you want to, if it's not like super ripe, kind of like the apple, but I didn't really like how that looked personally for me, but you can try that. Finally, for the blueberry, I mixed some purple into this dark blue, and it created this like perfect blueberry color, and we're gonna add lots of like splotches of some different blues and lighter blues into here. When I looked at lots of pictures of blueberries, they all kind of had like light blue splotches or darker blue purpley splotches all around them. So I'm gonna use some dry brushes and wet brushes to like buff it out and smooth it out, just kind of like stamp the edge of the brush all around it, and with a semi-wet brush kind of blend it out a bit so it's not too harsh of like little splotches. And then I did more of a dark purple towards this like stemmy top part, and then a nice light blue for the face. We are almost done painting these guys, but to match the other fruits that I did, I mixed this nice little like light brown color for all of the faces using a super tiny brush. Again, I'm going to create a little smiley face with some of the fruits. If like the contrast was darker than the brown color that I was using, I just mixed a tiny bit of black to make the brown a bit darker. And so I did that for the strawberry and the blueberry because I realized that like the color theory wasn't really matching there, so I had to make those a bit darker. And like with color theory here on some of the fruits, I needed to use lighter pink paint markers to do the little blush. And just finishing up on some final details on these guys, I just buffed out a little bit more yellow on the pineapple. And I'm using triple thick gloss, which is a really good gloss and it lasts a long time. You see I've barely used half of this, and just gonna gloss on all of those guys. Just make sure you're not doing the entire thing because you're gonna want to put it down while the rest of it's drying, and you want to be able to hold it with your fingers somehow. Just do all of those. It'll take a while. You can do as many coats as you want. I think I did 2 or 3, and then let those dry. And now it's time for the reveal. And we are finally done. These have all dried and they're looking super glossy and adorable and super smooth. Please tag me on Instagram or on social media if you are creating these yourself. Love to see your iterations of these guys, and even like the colors that you do if you decide to go with different colors for the apple or even do different fruits. Please show me. I'd love to see them all. And here we have the full lineup: an apple, a red apple, an orange, a yellow pineapple, a green watermelon, a little blue blueberry, and a pink strawberry. I had so much fun making these. These guys make me smile so much. I have these all laid out on my desk and I look at them all the time. They're so cute. I love them so much. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial for how to make your little fruit clay friends. And thank you so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe if you're new to the channel. And I will see you all next time. Goodbye, everybody.